doing a little sound check. Close your eyes and rest in this beautiful sound vibration. Rest your heart and mind. sing it together. Om Hari Om, nice and loud. Om Hari Om, Om Hari Om, Om Hari Om, and again. Om Hari Om, Om Hari Om, Om Hari Om, Om Hari Om. One more time. Om Hari Om, 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 Om Hari So welcome along everybody to the mantra room. If you're new to kirtan, you just did it. That's all there is to kirtan. Not much instruction needed. We just need to rest. We rest our bodies in bed when we need to rest it. But where do we rest the mind? We can rest the mind in these mantras. So when you're chanting, just rest. That's all you need to do. Very, very simple, very sublime. So we're going to move into a mantra breathing session now, where we add a mantra to our breath. And we're just going to relax a little bit more. And then we'll invite Acharya up to speak. He's going to be speaking, of course, on forgiveness, the path to freedom and happiness. And that talk will go around about 45 minutes or so. And then we're going to play a forgiveness. It's a recording, and it's very beautiful. It helps you to let go of anger and forgive. And then we'll be having a Q&A, questions and answers with Acharya, so feel free to go ahead and ask questions. So if you think of anything, keep it in mind for the end. Okay, so is everyone good? Everyone had a meal? You're all full, nice and full. Yeah. And the air conditioning okay? It's not too hot or cold for everyone. Everyone good? Yeah. Okay. All right, so let's just relax. Let your shoulders sink down, let your face soften. Just let your scalp relax. Let your whole body sink down into the cushion. Just let it become heavy. Bringing your awareness to your breath. Just breathing through the nostrils, in and out, in a nice wave-like motion. Slowing the breath down, taking it deeper into the lungs, but we want it to be a natural breath. This yoga breathing helps to calm the mind, slow it down. Let's continue on with this nice wave-like breath. We're going to step back from our mind. I want you to let the thoughts flow as they normally would. We're not trying to empty, still, or slow the mind. We just want the thoughts to be there. Just let them flow as they normally would. Just as if you can sit by the bank of a stream and watch the stream flow before your eyes. You can watch the stream of thoughts flowing through the mind. So just let them flow. Different thoughts will rise up and then flow away again. Sometimes those thoughts are flowing like a raging river. Sometimes they're like a swamp. Sometimes it's murky, sometimes clear. And you are the observer of the stream. Just observing the thoughts as they flow. Thoughts come in many forms: images, sounds, fears, anxieties and emotions of all different kinds, memories and desires, so many desires. You can say to yourself, I am the silent witness. I'm making no effort to think, but thoughts are coming automatically. I am watching the thoughts flow through my mind, but I am aloof from them. I am aloof from the thinking process. I can actually detach from my mind and become completely undisturbed by the different thoughts and feelings passing through the mind. We meditate upon a very important Vedic mantra, Aham Brahmasmi. This mantra means I am spirit, not matter. I'm not the body, I'm not the mind. I am the eternal spirit soul, the eternal spark of the Supreme Soul. I'm only temporarily in a material body. The body is temporary, but I am eternal. If you really take this mantra into your heart, contemplate upon it, it's life transforming. It changes so much. It changes where we look for happiness, how we relate to others, and what we define as success. So we're going to add a mantra to our breath now. The mantra is Go Ra Ang Ga. So the mantra Goranga, said in 4 syllables. Go Ra Ang Ga. So as you inhale, we're going to say the mantra within the mind, and as we exhale, we're going to say it out loud for the full length of the exhalation, drawing it right out for the full breath. And just meditate on the mantra. Feel the vibration in your throat and your mouth throughout your body. If your mind is wandering away, just gently bring it back. Place it once again on the mantra. It's just a gentle encouragement. We're not trying to use force or anything. Just encourage it back onto the sound. And we'll continue to rest. Rest our hearts and minds. It's a very beautiful mantra, Goranga. So we're going to take a couple of inhales and exhales together. And on the third exhalation, we'll add the mantra, but I will guide you through. So we inhale now, slow inhale. And exhale, slow exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. And on the next exhale, we'll add the mantra. We'll exhale now. Inhale, saying it within your mind. Three more breaths. Last one. Into a little kirtan. Just continuing on with Gauranga. Let's sing it together. One more time. We all relaxed? We all ready for Acharya Das? I'd like to invite Acharya Das up to speak to us.
Should be good. Namaste, everyone. So before speaking, I will offer an invocation to my spiritual teachers, our lineage, and to the Supreme Soul. Om Agnatimirandasya Gnajana Salakaya Chaksurum Militanyena Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha. Bhaja Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Ganadhara Sri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta-vrinda. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So the topic, forgiveness, the path to freedom and happiness. Everybody desires peace, to have peace of one's heart and mind. We'll give them a second. Thank you very much. In the Bhagavad Gita, it says that without peace, one cannot have happiness. That's an extraordinary idea, because in the world today we are told that no, your happiness is not going to be coming from peacefulness, it's going to be coming from kinetic energy, thumping noise, flashing lights, running to chase happiness. But Bhagavad Gita has a different opinion. If you are to genuinely experience happiness, peace is essential. In relation to the topic that we are discussing tonight, the question of what peace means, at least within the confines of our discussion. This peace means that I must become free from anger, from the oppressive and heavy weight of anger in my life and of hurt. If I am carrying in my heart and mind anger and a sense of hurt, it's impossible to become peaceful. And this sets up a little bit of a problem, because generally when people feel hurt or aggrieved, they really want to cling to anger because they feel it is righteous. And they often want to hold tightly to the hurt. It gives them a sometimes sense of identity. It's always really terrible and sad to speak to someone who has been a victim of abuse. When people actually open up, it's quite heartbreaking. And it's often difficult for people to manage. I was giving a series of workshops and seminars at a trust in New Zealand, a family trust, where they deal quite specifically with violence, domestic violence, and of sexual abuse. And I would usually teach people how to, there are different ways of looking at things. And it's really important to learn to look at things with great clarity and to understand what is in your best interest. And so during the, we go through a number of weeks. Once a week we would run these things, and usually around about the 5th or the 6th week I would raise the subject of forgiveness. And even before talking about it, just raising the subject, I've had people, most often women, who may just burst into tears or suddenly just stand up and leave. They don't even want to talk about it. They don't want to, they feel so traumatized that speaking about forgiveness really sets something off that it makes it so they can't even just remain sitting there. They'll often just get up and leave. It's not everyone, it's very few. But when somebody is carrying such a load of pain, that this word, forgiveness, can trigger such a response, then we know that they are in a very deep state of suffering, in a very deep state of pain. What's happening when we hold on to anger, when we hold on to this victimhood, this sense of being the victim? We are living in the shadow of the victimizer. We are literally living in the shadow. They don't have to be physically present. They don't even need to be part of your life. But that shadow, that long shadow, is cast over someone's life where they feel this way. The tendency to hold on to resentment, and I'm not just talking about it, I've used an example here. I've been talking about people that are victims of grave domestic violence or sexual violence, sexual abuse. But what I am speaking about applies to all areas of life and practically all relationships where we can experience, being hurt, gravely hurt. There is this tendency, when we feel that way, to really want to hold on to it. The things that I'm going to be talking about and already talking about, I ask you to be very patient in listening to this. People that have or are experiencing this condition, there is a strong tendency to want to just shut down before we really get the opportunity to hear. My interest in speaking to someone on this subject is so that person can actually become free. That light can enter their life and they can become free. They can step out of the shadow of an oppressor or someone that is unjust. That we can more fully take charge of our life, make decisions, and live without the weight of this heavy influence looming over us. So it's important that people appreciate, this is my motivation in speaking about these topics. My motivation is that you will not suffer, that your suffering will come to an end. And you need to always consider this. If I am still feeling the weight of hurt, I am feeling the pain, even if I am not very angry, I have to understand that my current choices in how I am living and thinking about these things are not freeing me from this situation. And so I need to be open to hearing other alternate ways of thinking about things and considering things. I need to be open to that, because what I'm doing currently is not working, meaning I am not free from this. There is an inherent problem in often the way that we think about things, where I'm thinking in terms of somebody else who has done something hurtful or painful to me. So you've got two things here: the other person, the victimizer, and me, the victim. We won't go into that any further, but we will circle back to it as we move forward. There is one thing that many people in this state, they have the wrong notion, and they may not even thought about it this clearly, but they have this wrong notion that if I somehow hang on to my pain and my hurt, that somehow it's going to hurt the other person that hurt me. That other person invariably doesn't care whether you hang on to it or not. And hanging on to it is not going to hurt them. It's not going to make them suffer. It's not going to do anything for them. It's just going to mess you up. It's just going to control your life in horrible ways. It's going to affect the nature of your relationships with others, particularly those that are close to you. It begins to shape and really affect the nature of your other relationships in life. Wanting to see others suffer is actually not good. Firstly, you must understand that the laws of karma are so stringent. They are inescapable. Any person that has caused you pain without your doing anything about it, just because of the nature of the laws of karma, they will come to a period at some point where they will suffer in the same way that they made you suffer. That is inescapable. You don't even have to wish for them to suffer. In fact, your wishing for them to suffer doesn't change anything except your own life, your own happiness, your own lack of freedom, your own increased suffering. So they're going to get it. It ain't no free ride. You pay for everything. What goes around comes around. As you sow, so ye shall reap. Since ancient times, these things are known. We may think we're all sophisticated and cute with our social media and think it doesn't apply anymore. Sorry. These are great truths that are inescapable. So since somebody is going to suffer at least as much, if not more, than the suffering that they have done to you, don't think that you're hanging on to anger is going to make it any worse for them. No, it doesn't. It just makes it worse for you. This is not smart to think this way. This causes self-inflicted harm. Some people think they want to hang on to their anger and resentment because you see what they did to me? Yeah, but that doesn't justify your anger. You have to understand that anger hurts you. Anger really hurts you and will make it so you never experience peace. And as I quoted from the Bhagavad Gita, how can there be happiness without peace? And so if I want to hang on to my anger, I am depriving myself of opportunity for actual happiness. These are not just like some philosophical ideas. This is real. This is life. This is life. This may be radical. You may have never heard anything like this before. But everybody needs to hear this message. These are ancient truths. In the Vedas, anger is described as a gateway to hell. I'm not talking about some place with a lot of fire. We're talking about the deepest pits of unhappiness and painfulness that one can experience, an absolute hellish condition of life. And anger is a gateway to this hell. It's not just like maybe it will happen. Definitely it will happen. If we look at our lives, we'll see it there. You know, one of the problems, we get so used to things, we carry these loads around, and we have all this conditioning, and we lose a real objective clarity that can make it so that we can look at things very simply and in great clarity and go, yeah. I don't know how many people think that there is a necessity for me as an individual spiritual being to have a intimate connection with the very source of my being, the Supreme Soul, of which I am a little spark. Our search for love, our search for a soulmate, our search for the perfect relationship is actually a profoundly spiritual search for us to reconnect with our spiritual source. And if you are going to live a life that is not just dominated, but even if there is manifest anger and resentment or hurt that I'm carrying around, it means I become separated from what is my eternal good, my connection with God, my connection with a higher spiritual truth or experience or reality. Now beginning to approach the subject of forgiveness. We have, as part of the, I'll just make a side point. In the Bhagavad Gita, it describes that as embodied living beings, human beings, we have both a lower nature and a higher nature. If we align with that which is spiritual, which is in our eternal best interest, we manifest a higher nature. If we are surrendered to our mind and desires and emotions, and these are ruling our lives, then we are aligned with our lower nature. We are capable of acting in a godly fashion, or we are capable of acting as an utter, cruel, subhuman entity. Who can torture and kill even, has no feelings of regret and remorse. When I would conduct a number of courses also in prisons, and in speaking to people behind bars who have done horrific stuff, like it's unbelievable what we are capable of doing to each other in extreme cases. But in practically all cases, whether it's murdering someone, whether it's terrorizing someone when they go to hold up a store or something, generally perpetrators of crime do not identify any victim. They are totally fixated on what they want. This includes in a lot of sexual violence as well, where people just become so fixated with what they want. Like when somebody goes in to rob a dairy, a store, and then are threatening the guy behind the counter, maybe with a hammer. Can you imagine hitting somebody with a hammer? How out of it is that? I mean, crushing somebody's bones in their arms or ribs or face with a hammer? I mean, what's that? But in those situations, and when you talk to people that perpetrate violence, they do not recognize any victim. They are only simply, totally, narrowly focused on what they're after. To steal cigarettes or money, or to satisfy a sexual urge through this domination and everything, whatever. They're totally fixated on what they want. And another person is just something in the way of me getting what I want. This is how bad things can become. The need for us in our life, so that's kind of like extreme case. On a small scale, we're doing this all the time. We want to demand, for instance, in relationship, perfection from others. But we don't demand perfection from ourselves. Right or not? Can you relate? I mean, it's just like, it's so infantile. We become so swept away by our mind and desires and impulses. And we can get so upset because somebody's not being perfect. They're not behaving, they're not responding, they're not dealing with something the way I want it. And at that time that I am speaking this way, the thought of what I am doing and how I am behaving doesn't even enter my mind. This shows you how lost we are in these conditions and why peace is almost unattainable. Real happiness becomes almost unattainable. There's just no clarity. So understanding these things is like really, really important and really critical. And on a little bit lesser scale, oh boy, this is a big subject. But fundamentally, you know, we have a tendency to blame others for our unhappiness. And we ourselves often don't take responsibility for our unhappiness. I mean, one of the most amazing things, it blew my mind when I was a kid and I heard somebody say it for the first time. If I knew you were like that, I would have never married you. What? You don't think that you have any responsibility? I mean, you're going to get into a committed relationship with someone and you don't know what they're like? How dumb is that? That's really maximum dumb. You don't get dumber than that. And then when it turns out crap, you blame them. Well, God, their behavior may be outrageous, but what about you? Why didn't you do your job? Why didn't you check that person out? Why, you are so in love? Where's that love now? It's not called love, that's called lust. Self-interest. I want this, and I believe this will be fantastic, and I believe I will be perfectly happy. And because I'm believing it and I'm thinking it, it must be true. No, that's being detached from reality. I'm not suggesting we become cold and calculated, but at least we got to function. You utilize at least half your brain. And don't just be swept away by emotion. That's so dangerous. You might be marrying a mass murderer. Yeah, but he or she was so nice. So nice to me, I can't believe it. Ah, you have to believe it. What becomes manifest is real. So when we talk about forgiveness, as I mentioned, my motivation in speaking about forgiveness is not anything other than people can become free from great pain and suffering. There is this false idea that if I forgive someone, somehow it's condoning their action. Somehow it's minimizing the gravity of what they have done. Somehow it's allowing a continuation. And that's like, no, that has nothing to do with what forgiveness is about. It's really not about those kind of things. A person can be utterly accountable and responsible, and yet I can still forgive. Forgiveness, as I said, is an opportunity for me to become free from what is controlling my life, often in a very negative way. I think it's also really important to understand you cannot forgive someone for something that they have done to someone else. You can only forgive someone for what they may have done to you. That's really important to understand and appreciate. Some people think that, well, if I forgive this person and they don't change their behavior and they continue to abuse or hurt me, isn't that wrong? Isn't it that I shouldn't be forgiving them? No, don't mix these things up. You can both forgive a person and call the police. You live in a society where there's so many resources to help people that have been victimized by great violence. There's so many resources. And you need to be brave and stalwart. And if you need to pick up the phone and call for help to curb this person's outrageous and terribly wrong and criminal behavior, that's got nothing to do with whether you forgive or don't forgive. That's a separate issue. To forgive doesn't mean you become stupid. It's actually a moment of tremendous clarity where you can also come to find amazing strength. Strength doesn't mean that you become cruel in return, that you become violent in return. That means you can say no. It stops right now. And there are resources to help with that. So understanding what forgiveness is, and it's really important not to confuse it with some of these things that we've been talking about. So we're exploring forgiveness from a spiritual perspective. What does that mean? What does spiritual mean? What does material mean? You know, people have a notion about it's not good to be materialistic, but they often limit their understanding of materialistic to somebody that's just into buying stuff or worried about their image and whether their post on Instagram is getting enough likes. But while those things are symptoms of being perhaps materialistic, the foundation of materialism is the idea that I am material. What does that mean? The body is material. It is material energy. It is constantly changing. It is going through transition and will eventually die. This is the nature of material energy. The foundation of spirituality is to understand that I am an eternal spiritual being, temporarily residing within this body. This body will either become sick or aged or have an accident and will not be able to house me any longer, and I will be forced to leave. And when I leave, the body manifests what is called death. You do not die. You cannot die. The body dies. The body is born and the body dies. But you are an eternal spiritual being. And one of the great tragedies is that how human society is so unaware of this foundational truth that utterly shapes our life. How we see ourselves shapes the nature of our relationships, what we think is important, what is the purpose of my life, what I should seek. All of these really big things are shaped by my sense or my understanding of who I am. If a person is absorbed in the notion or the idea of the body as being the self, this is just, I'm sorry, this is the path to unhappiness. Doesn't go anywhere else. You may have a few exciting moments and some titillation, and you can whip your senses and the mind into some sort of like frenzy of ecstatic experience. But that all just passes. And even the most wonderful experiences leave you in the same place, only with a memory of them. They do not fulfill, they do not completely satisfy. I am not saying that one should avoid these things, but one needs to have some clarity in order to truly find happiness. So the foundation of what it is that we are speaking about now and the solutions are very much tied to this understanding. I am not my material body, nor am I my mind. I am an eternal spiritual being. And the cultivation of this understanding leads to complete liberation from all forms of painfulness and distress. I have a few notes here. all the great spiritual traditions of the world glorify forgiveness as being indispensable for authentic spiritual growth and living a happy and peaceful life. So I'll read you a quote from an amazing ancient text from India, one of the yogic texts, called the Bhagavad Purana, also called the Srimad Bhagavatam. The duty of a wise person is to cultivate the quality of forgiveness, which is illuminating like the sun. The Supreme Soul, Hari, is pleased with those who are forgiving. I won't go into it here. We'll move on to some other things, but just bringing your attention that the quality of forgiveness is illuminating like the sun. Is it not, when you are caught up in hatefulness and anger and resentment for things that may be absolutely terrible that may have been done, are you in light or are you in darkness? When you curl up in the corner or in your bed and you weep, are you in light or are you in darkness? Isn't that a dark place? It's an extremely dark place. And this phrase, that forgiveness is illuminating like the sun, means that if it is understood and actually practiced, it brings such light into your life and your heart, just as the sun illuminates dark places. So I mentioned earlier that we also have some responsibility in this paradigm, meaning it's not just what others do, it's also what I do. Jesus Christ, whom most people are very familiar with, at least to some degree, he famously, when he was approached by some of his followers, his disciples, and they asked, "How do we pray? Teach us how to pray." And so he gave them an example. And in that example, he said, in praying to God, "Forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive them who trespass against us." This, I'm not promoting the idea of, adoption of Christianity or any religion or anything, but this is a deep spiritual truth that we all need to embrace. We cannot seek forgiveness for our wrongdoings. I've had a lot of experiences sitting at the side of beds where people were in the last moments of life about to die. And one of the most painful things to see is where somebody, even at the time of death, is going to hang on to their anger at someone and not grant forgiveness. When somebody asks them, "Can you forgive me for what I've done?" And they have this opportunity to grant forgiveness and to become free, for light to enter their life and their heart, the deepest recesses, and they refuse to. It's just like, oh my God, that's so unproductive. It doesn't result in anything good. Only great unhappiness comes from such an action. When a person learns forgiveness, they begin to step out of just their world and what they're experiencing. They begin to look at things more broadly. And the most astonishing thing that can come from that is a person can even come to the condition of feeling compassion and sadness for a perpetrator of harm. Where I can look upon a person who has done great wrong to me, and I'm able to see, my God, they're suffering so much. Their life is totally screwed up. And they're just hanging on to this bitterness. You know, we see this horrible situation of, like cyclical things where somebody was treated really crappy as a kid and suffered so much, and then they grew up and they have their own kids and behave in the same way. There's this twisted psychology where I think I'm sort of somehow paying back what happened to me by inflicting pain on others. But whatever the situation is, anybody that is engaged in harming another person cannot possibly experience happiness or peace. Doesn't matter what the show they put on. They actually become tormented by this. The development of the spiritual vision of being able to see the reality that everyone are eternal spiritual beings caught up in a temporary material body and mind, and becoming victimized even by their own mind and desires of their body, and will behave in ways that only cause themselves pain and suffering. To be able to have that clarity and see that means, yes, I can both acknowledge how somebody unjustly caused me tremendous harm and pain, and I can feel sorry for them. And that's just like, oh my God, we've now moved out of just this world where it's all about me. And I mean that in a really nice way. To being able to see others and what's going on with them. In Islam, it's actually a big deal to practice compassion and forgiveness. Some time ago, there was a YouTube clip that was making the rounds. And in that YouTube clip, it was a courtroom. And there was a guy that had participated in a horrible slaughtering someone. The guy was a pizza delivery man. And somebody was so overwhelmed with lustfulness. Lustfulness means intense self-centeredness. They just wanted to get some money to score some drugs. And so they ordered pizza. And when the guy showed up, they cornered him and stabbed him to death. I mean, it's just like, what are you doing? Don't you know how much suffering you will endure for having done that? And even if you get the money, so what? You know, you inject it or smoke it and it's gone. There's nothing gained. How could you be so, and if their own brother or sister or child or parent was brutally stabbed and robbed, they would be really upset. The criminals, they get really upset. But when they do it to someone, they don't see it. It's just because you've become so focused in this lustful, self-centeredness. And during this guy ended up getting 31 years imprisonment because it was so violent and vicious. 31 years. And after the sentence, or before the sentence, there was an opportunity for the family to address the court and address the perpetrator. And there was this little guy, this Muslim man, standing there in the court, looking at the person that had just murdered his son. Looking at him, he said, "I do not hate you. I actually feel sorry for you, and I forgive you. I know that in your heart you are not an evil person, but you have allowed evilness to enter your life and take control and direct this horrible act. But I know in your heart you are not an evil person. And so I forgive you because we are called to forgive." The judge was crying. Everybody in the court, the bailiff was, he had his handkerchief out crying. The guy that was to be sentenced was standing there listening to this, and he just broke down and burst into tears. And so the father stepped out of the dock and approached the table where the perpetrator was and called him forward and reached out and embraced him. And the guy that had killed his son was just sobbing on his shoulder. There's something really special going on there that will have a profound impact on the person who is offering forgiveness. He can't forgive the murder of his son. He can forgive the man for taking my son from me, depriving me of this. He can forgive that. But the guy doesn't get off for having committed the crime. You cannot forgive someone for something they have done to someone else. You can only forgive them for what they have done to you. But it was deeply, deeply moving they had to call a break in the court because everybody was bawling their eyes out. It was wonderful. I've seen many of these things, and I know that even in grave situations, the power of forgiveness. And the power of forgiveness is so profound that not only can you feel compassion, you can even feel love for your enemy. This is an extraordinary ideal. I mean, absolutely extraordinary. People that are suffering because of great hurt, it's really hard to hear these things. It often takes a good amount of time. You know, this activity that we all engage in, the activity of meditation, it will give you this vision of your spiritual identity and of the spiritual identity of others. The word mantra, it's made of two parts, manaha, which references the mind, and trayate, is the root. It means to deliver, to protect or to deliver, to become delivered even from the grip of your own mind, which can hold you in horrible place. I'll just read a couple of verses because these have got nothing to do with conventional religion. They are deep spiritual truth that may be reflected or referenced in religious traditions. But consider this. This is a biblical verse. You have heard that it has been said that thou should love thy neighbor and hate thy enemy. But I say unto you, love your enemies, bless them that curse you, do good to them that hate you, and pray for them which despitefully use you and persecute you. What a calling, what a challenge. What a challenge to actually embrace such an idea. Another quote from the Srimad Bhagavatam, and this is: a saintly person is merciful and never injures others. Even if others are aggressive, they are tolerant and forgiving towards all living entities. Their strength and meaning in life comes from the truth itself. And he is free from all envy and jealousy, and the mind is equal in material happiness and in distress, and thus he dedicates his time to work for the welfare of all others. Now, final verse from Bhagavad Gita, which I referenced in terms of there is no possibility of happiness without peace. And what we've talked about tonight is transcendental or spiritual intelligence, where one can cultivate this faculty that we all have. It's called buddhi. spiritual intelligence. And instead of just getting swept along in the river of the mind and all the raging passions and emotions and all these things that we learn, rather than being swept away by the river, to step out of it and look at things with clarity. One who is not connected to the Supreme can have neither transcendental intelligence nor a steady mind, without which there is no possibility of peace. And how can there be any happiness without peace? If you learn and practice forgiveness, it can be transformational in your life. And the rewards for such a courageous thing is enormous relief, illumination, and happiness. So what I'd like to do just now, as mentioned by Gayatri earlier, we're going to put on a brief forgiveness meditation. And I'm going to ask from you that you sit comfortably with your eyes closed, and with our attention in the deepest recess of our heart. Just listen and take in this guided meditation. It can change your life.
Namaste, and welcome again, dear friend. Take your time to get comfortable. You can sit or lie down if you like. When you're ready, close your eyes. Observe your natural breath drifting in and out. Let your body relax with each breath. The essence of transcendental sound vibration is unconditional love. The essence of love is forgiveness. Focus your attention in the middle of your chest or your heart chakra. If it helps you focus, place your hand on your chest. Look deeply into your heart for feelings of anger, resentment, or jealousy that you are holding on to. Perhaps something has happened recently, or it's an old feeling from long ago. Find any anger, resentment, or jealousy that you may still be holding on to. Once you've found these feelings, ask yourself, do I still want this? Do I want to continue to embrace my anger? Or do I want to let it go? You have the power to dissolve your anger with forgiveness. Let me repeat. You have the power to dissolve your anger with forgiveness. Now rest your heart in the transcendental yoga sound. Let the sacred sounds awaken the power of forgiveness that's already present in your heart.
Chaitanya Nityananda Kohari Chaitanya Nityananda Kohari Chaitanya Nityananda Kohari Chaitanya Nityananda Kohari.
If you choose to do so, release all your anger and embrace the yoga sound within your heart. Let the yoga sound bathe your heart with unconditional love and forgiveness.
Chaitanya Nityananda Kohari Chaitanya Nityananda Kohari Chaitanya Nityananda Kohari Chaitanya Nityananda Kohari. Chaitanya Nityananda Kohari Chaitanya Nityananda Kohari Chaitanya Nityananda Kohari Chaitanya Nityananda Kohari. Chaitanya Nityananda Kohari Chaitanya Nityananda Kohari Chaitanya Nityananda Kohari Chaitanya Nityananda Kohari. Chaitanya Nityananda Kohari Chaitanya Nityananda Kohari Chaitanya Nityananda Kohari Chaitanya Nityananda Kohari.
At first, we may feel unable to forgive, but the more we immerse ourselves in yoga sound meditation, the more we'll be able to actually experience the relief and happiness from letting go of the anger in our hearts and consciously make the decision to forgive others. Please practice this meditation as often as you like.
Nice. Illuminating like the sun. So we will just chant for a short while, and then we'll do a little Q&A, and if you need to leave or would like to leave, please don't be concerned. Just go right ahead. I'll chant the Maha Mantra. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, So I understand we're doing a Q&A, are we? If anybody has a question. And as I said, if anybody, might be getting late for some. If anybody needs to leave, please don't worry, that's fine.
Namaste, Acharya. I just, how much easier is it to forgive others if I am aware of the fact that I deserve what's happened to me, that I understand through my own past actions that I've brought on my own suffering? Do you feel that this makes it easier to forgive others?
I would suggest some caution and discretion in this recognition, because a person can sincerely recognize that but it's also possible for a person to, unfortunately and somewhat falsely, fall into the notion that I deserve everything that is coming my way. That may or may not be true. But regardless of that fact, a person who is causing you great pain will suffer for that, whether you think you deserve it or not. They will still suffer for that. I wasn't entirely clear on the question because there's a little bit of gap in the idea. Whether we deserve some unhappiness in our life due to the fact that we may have acted in a way that was inappropriate, incorrect, fallen. It shouldn't really have any bearing on my forgiving others for what they may have done to me. Having said that, if you want any clarification on any part of that, please let me know. It's a horrible discovery when we discover that we have caused much pain and unhappiness to others, and it was unnecessary. You know, something that's really important to understand. The choice of how we are going to respond to something is entirely in our domain. If we are surrendered to our mind, meaning our mind is running the show, which can be an enormous disaster, and our mind is overflooded with anger and is just lashing out and saying and behaving in a way that's actually not making anything better and never improves anything. Everything becomes worse because of anger. And recognizing that there are other avenues, there are other options regarding how I can respond to something. When a person understands this, it's like a massive breakthrough in life. Because before responding, you can consider what's in my best interest and what's in this other person's best interest. And how can I shape a response that actually moves our lives towards something that's better, even a little bit. That's like, whoa. The fact that you could think like that before saying something or doing something, this is real intelligence. But the discovery that I have reaped havoc on others' lives, it can be almost crippling. And the need for us, having made such a discovery, to beg forgiveness is really important. But then another part of that is the person that I'm addressing may not be ready to forgive. They may be hanging on to things. then that becomes even doubly painful. But with understanding and spiritual intelligence, one will be able to find a way through these things to the safe harbor of actual love and peacefulness. So if you want to ask anything more, perhaps I've sufficiently answered your question.
Yes, you have. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else have a question?
Hello. My question would be on this journey of forgiveness. Where do we start? So even if the idea of forgiving others for things they've done to us, if you are like some kind of trapped in that place where you can not forgive yourself, like how do you get out of that cycle of guilt, anger, anxiety, and so on? So where do we start?
Actually, the starting place, just like it was mentioned in the forgiveness meditation, begins with sincerely allocating some time every day to meditate on these spiritual sounds, to become absorbed in them. And I absolutely promise that as a result of this, you will have clarity as to how you can start in your own life. And the start is always difficult. If we want to seek forgiveness, there is already a broken trust. The person that you're going to approach doesn't trust, and they may not trust now that you are approaching for forgiveness. But it has to be done, and it has to be started. And sometimes it will be time that demonstrates your sincerity and makes it so the other person can gradually begin to embrace more. You know, all situations and all people are different, so it's not like there's one easy answer to that question. But by starting in the process of meditation upon these spiritual sounds and the cultivation of the understanding that I'm an eternal spiritual being and I'm looking at another person simply as being their body, and based on a relationship between bodies, based on whatever I may be, have acted or spoken or done things that I should not. So step by step it will become clear, but the main thing is sincerity and being prepared to accept that there may be a lot of pain attached even to seeking forgiveness, because we don't know how another person will respond to that. But if you are utterly sincere, and prepared to be completely defenseless, and you're approaching someone for forgiveness, they will be touched. Okay?
All right, thank you.
Haribol Charidas.
Haribol.
Like, is the forgiveness is like if I forgive someone and maybe next time, is it like totally gone? Like how you can really say that I forgive that person maybe tomorrow? Because it's like if someone comes to, the same person comes to me, and if my mind says the same bullshit which I was thinking before, how can I stop that?
Again, it's going to, for many people and many situations, it's going to be a gradual process. Sometimes people can, on the basis of emotion and of wanting to do the right thing, say, I forgive you, but still, actually in the depth of their heart, be still holding on a little bit. And then later, that might come to the surface. And when it comes to the surface, then I can recognize I did not actually fully forgive. I'm still holding on to some residual hurt feeling or anger. And one thing you can do is go to the person and say, you know, I told you that I had forgiven you, and I've discovered that perhaps I have not fully forgiven. And I'm sorry if I am still holding on to something when I had told you that I had forgiven you. I hope you will be patient with me as I try to more perfectly forgive. That will make a big difference. Yeah?
Thank you.
Haribol.
Haribol.
I just have one question. Is it easier if you forgive yourself first before you start forgiving others?
In all honesty, this is a term that is not actually understood. People talk about forgiving themselves, but it's kind of like, well, you know this. I said that the foundation of all forgiveness is to understand your spiritual identity. So when somebody says, I forgive myself, who is that I and who is that myself? And what exactly is that about? Am I offending myself? I don't know. People, and you notice in what I will call psychology light, people talk about forgiving themselves, but it's not a very deep thought. It's going to be difficult to find any practical situation where you've offended yourself. You know, there's lots of ideas in modern psychiatry and psychology about loving yourself. Like, you actually can't love yourself. Love is a relationship. And if you're loving yourself and having a relationship with yourself, you're schizophrenic. Because there's only one of you in there. There's not two. It's really, I was dazzled and broken-hearted when I heard Whitney Houston do that. The greatest love of all. You know, that sounds amazing, is found inside of you. And she says it is to love yourself. And that's just like, okay, you're going to hate me for this. That's just like narcissistic or schizophrenic. We are by nature seeking to love another. And the idea is, oh, I can't find perfect love in this world, so I love myself. That's not healthy. From a spiritual point of view, sorry. I don't care if you get all the psychiatrists in the world that say, no, I'm wrong. I don't give a shit. That's nuts. And you are not going to help people by pushing that idea, because it's not founded on any reality, spiritual reality. So there's all kinds of stuff going around trying to make people feel better, whereas the way to feel better is to discover your actual spiritual identity, to recognize your mind. Boy, this is a big subject.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. Just like the body, because of association with the Atma. This word Atma means self. Because of the proximity of the Atma to the body, the Atma lends consciousness, awareness to the body. And the body appears to be alive. But as soon as the Atma leaves, the real nature of the body is manifest. It's just dead matter. But this amazing thing happens where in proximity to an Atma, the body manifests symptoms of life and can even seem to be independent. Like it can manifest desires, not just mentally, but desire for sensual experience. And the person and guy, like, I don't want to feel that, I don't want to feel that. Right or not?
Yeah.
So in a similar way, the mind, and a lot of people don't understand very much about the mind, and the yogic teachings are just amazing how they unfold this. The mind similarly borrows consciousness from the Atma, and being permeated by consciousness manifests an independence. And so it is stated that the mind can be one's greatest friend or greatest enemy. When the mind is unbridled, you know what is a bride?
Yeah.
Not like bride and groom, yeah? Bridle.
Bridle.
You know, for controlling the horse. When the mind is uncontrolled, it is always considered to be the worst enemy of the Atma, the self. And so, I don't know what's going on. People are just dreaming up things to try and make the mind feel better, because that's you. So you feel better. My mind can feel good, but I can feel very alone and unfulfilled. I have this amazing blog that some woman wrote about how everything was so perfect in her life. She had an amazing job, earning wonderful money, she's in good physical condition, she's actually attractive, she's got a wonderful husband, yet she's lying there feeling so sad and asking, why am I feeling sad? You know, so your mind can be in a state of, you know, pacified material state, but we can still feel a great emptiness within. So in relation to forgiving oneself, if you haven't transgressed against yourself, and you and yourself, what, the soul is going to transgress against the soul? No. The mind can take control and make horrible decisions that I go with, that I follow. And I realize, wow, this is bad, and there's consequences here. And if I say I need to forgive myself, it's kind of like, well, that's not a very clear idea. As a living being, and utilizing my intelligence, I can say, wow, my mind got the better of me and I followed it. Now because of that, I'm in this situation. I need to learn from this. I need to take control of the decision making, not just act impulsively based on desire and dictates of the mind. I have to consider what is truly in my interest. So on that basis, we're not forgiving ourselves.
Thank you for clarifying. Namaste.
You're welcome. Some people are probably not going to agree. It's kind of like, what can you do? Sorry. I am obliged to speak truthfully, even if it causes discomfort. I try not. I'm kind of like the bad news guy. I try not to be too upsetting because I'm insensitive and not so smart, but nevertheless, bear with me. I will speak the truth. Yeah.
Namaste.
Namaste.
I had to write this question twice because I didn't know how to write it down really, but
Can I just say before you continue?
Of course.
You know, the wonderful thing about writing down a question is you get to, you know, we have this weird thing that we think we understand stuff and we think we got a grip on it, but then as soon as you try to say it, or worse, try to write it down, it's kind of like, and so writing something down is a wonderful exercise because it really brings clarity to your question and clarity to your thinking, and you're able to more deeply appreciate a good answer.
100%. The question is, there's a quote that says, the lesson will keep on repeating until it's learned.
The what?
The lesson will keep on repeating until it's learned. There's a quote. I read it somewhere, but the question is, now...
Well, of course, my question would be a quote from who or what.
Sorry, I cannot recall.
But anyway, I'm with you on.
Right, awesome. Again, so the lesson will keep on repeating until it's learned. Now, does that mean someone's karmic debt can stop or be paid off the moment they realize what is the root cause of that action they took that caused that karma?
There is truth to what you are saying, but not complete truth. You know, I don't know where the quote comes from, so I don't just accept stuff easily. I'm quite guarded and skeptical. You know, the internet is full of all kinds of wonderful quotes, but they could have been pulled out of someone's, you know what, don't know. And it may appeal to the mind and sound like, you know. So, but fundamentally there is a truth to it, that until there is a shift in consciousness, we are pretty much going to keep doing the same things over and over. Learning that I shouldn't be doing it doesn't bring an end to the karmic reaction for all the previous times I did it. That is still there. And one has to utilize a different process to clear that burden, that load of karmic result. And that's fundamentally the process of absorption and meditation upon spiritual sound. It is like a fire that burns past sinful reaction to ashes. There's another component to it that a lot of people are unaware of, and it is this seed of desire, bijam, that every time I engage in a material action driven by a material desire, it is like planting a seed. I become more conditioned by material conception and material desire. And it's like it creates these seeds that are planted in, we can say, planted in my heart. And what will happen is a person may come to a point of leading a very, very good life, but then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, it seems like, suddenly things can just sprout up in the heart or in the mind. And suddenly there is an intense attraction towards something or other that I don't want. So you've got two problems. One is getting rid of the load, the karmic result of past activity, but also this store of seeds which can sprout up at any moment and cause me to continue on that pathway. And so they describe how the use of the spiritual sound is like a fire under a wok. And if I put seeds in the wok and I stir them in the heat, it doesn't matter where I plant them and how much watering I do, they can't fructify, they can't sprout again. It becomes destroyed. Karma is a complex subject. Okay? You like this stuff? I love it.
Haribo, namaste.
Namaste.
You outlined earlier the danger and detriment of anger, and I'm wondering, it seems that anger is natural in some ways. We feel angry when something happens, like someone hurts a family member or something extreme happens. And I'm wondering, is there a situation where anger is helpful or constructive rather than destructive?
The answer is yes, believe it or not. There is a place for anger. And it has absolutely nothing to do with oneself. If I witness somebody beating a kid to a pulp, or a large man beating up a woman on the side of the street, I need to intervene. And there may be a need to manifest strong words or action, but it's not the same as anger, which is completely self-centered. You know, when a person becomes angry, it's impossible to have the idea that I am an eternal spiritual being and the person I am showing anger at is an eternal spiritual being having a temporary material experience in that body. You can't do it. The expression of anger is really based on a complete absorption in the idea of the body and mind as the self. And when I say you and I say me, I'm talking about the spiritual being. I'm only talking about material coverings, right? So while a person may manifest something that appears to be like anger for spiritual or good purpose, it's still not like anger in that it is not an overwhelming self-centered experience. Okay?
Thank you.
I don't even know the question. I have a statement, or a feeling, I guess. I've been dealing with issues of depression for many years, and like I heard what you were saying earlier about people bursting into tears in your sessions and that. And I've been coming along here for about 4 months, and I feel a sense of peace whenever I'm doing mantra. But when you were talking about forgiveness, I was in a sense of rage, like that that animal just bouncing around uncontrollably in my head. And then when you started doing mantras, you're there doing the guitar, it's like I just got peaceful again. And I find it very hard intellectually to go down the path of forgiveness.
Yeah.
But I find it very peaceful to go down the path of mantra.
Yeah.
And like I said, I don't have a question. It's just what I'm thinking.
So my advice would be for you to be patient and in a committed way continue on the path of absorption and spiritual sound, that practice. And you will find in time that everything will fall into place. There will be a clarity, and there will be a greater sense of you being able to step back from the mind. You know, people that develop this spiritual practice, it's not that all of a sudden everything is just like amazing and my mind's just full of peacefulness. One of the qualities that we're encouraged to cultivate is tolerance. And that's not just tolerance of others and things that I don't like or things that affect me, but also tolerance of how my mind can get on a trip and drag me in different directions and cause me to be very unhappy, experience profound unhappiness, leading even to very depressed conditions. So as a person grows in their experience and realization that comes from the process, you will learn to step back from the mind. And even when the mind can be raging, it's kind of like, an example is like, you know, if you've got a kid that's totally out of control and, you know, just demanding attention and just going off and won't listen, and you give it a bit of a timeout and you put it in the room, the back room, and say, you can come out when you calm down and we'll talk about it. But until you calm down, I'm sorry, you're going to have to stay in the room. And then mum or dad, whoever, goes back to the kitchen or whatever and continues doing what they're going to do. And there's still a major ruckus going on in the back room. But at least I've kind of closed the door and it's not too bad. And eventually the kid calms down and says, you know, okay, sorry, you know, okay, let's talk about it. So in that example is actually a very appropriate example for how anybody that struggled with mental related challenges, where for whatever reason we find ourselves in very challenging situations, learning to step back from it and understanding I don't have to follow all the dictates of my mind. I don't have to. That doesn't make them go away, but it reduces their effect and impact on me. So if you honestly and sincerely continue that practice, I promise that there will be a substantial improvement in your life and the condition of your mind. It will be a byproduct of a growing awareness of my spiritual identity. Does that sound okay?
Yeah.
I promise it works. I mean, there's always an example that it's so strongly in my mind. I had a friend, a guy I met, and he was like, he had chronic and severe mental issues, hallucinations, schizophrenia, you know, and I remember visiting him one time when he had been committed to a psych ward, and it was like a ghost. He was just like and just hallucinating and trying to talk to me, and it was just like absolute unbelievable situation. But he understood that this process was beneficial, and he understood the more he cultivated the appreciation of his spiritual identity, actually began to give him more control over his mind and body, over his life and what's going on. And I saw him progress over a period of about 15, 18 years from being, using really heavy psychotic, drugs and everything to keep control of his life. And he understood that what I need to do is I need to keep everything on an even keel so I can continue doing this. And then over time, I saw this transformation that was extraordinary. It's not like he still didn't have struggles, but everything shifted from being something that could just overwhelm him and destroy him almost, to recognizing, yeah, I've got a real beat up car here, and if I take it out on the highway and I get up to 50, the wheels start wobbling and the smoke coming out and the radiator might get me, it's getting really hot, so I got to slow down. I can probably just keep it at 40. And if I do, I can get from 80. And that's what I need to do. I need to get to work, so I utilize what I have at my disposal, and I use it within its limitations. And I get to where I need to go, and I get to do what I need to do. And so he looked at his mental state in that kind of a framework. And so it just became, working with the old beat up car. And towards the end of his life, he ended up with cancer. There was tremendous clarity in his life. And he passed in a very wonderful way. Total clarity about who he was and what it was all about and what he was dealing with. No anger, why is it like this for me or anything. Just accepting, okay, this is the way it is. I get to get on with stuff. I need to live a productive and a life that will bring some happiness and some peace, which is all spiritual in nature. Okay?
It's me again. So how can we free ourselves from guilt? And when I'm talking guilt, I don't mean the kind of not like we've done something bad to someone else, but like in my case, I always have that voice in my head blaming myself for everything. Even if someone does something bad to me, there's this voice telling me, yeah, if you wouldn't have done this, then this wouldn't have happened to you.
Yeah.
So,
well, can I say that from a clearer, perhaps, perspective, is not really guilt. Guilt is not bad. Guilt is good. If I have done something bad to someone, and either immediately or in 1 week or 1 year or 10 years down the road, I come to recognize the harm I have caused, to feel guilt that yes, I have done something really bad and I need to seek to correct that. That is good. I know what you're talking about, and I do understand it. And what's going to make it so you can function better is the cultivation of the appreciation of your spiritual identity and who you really are, that the mind is not you. The mind is capable of all kinds of stuff and functioning in all different kinds of ways. Engaging in this process will make it so that mind will actually become more calm, and you will get greater insight, and you will develop wonderful and great resilience and be able to deal with all kinds of adversity. Life sucks. You're born in a certain body. It all looks fantastic. You know, I always have the example, it's like old granddad sitting there, and then the grandkids, 3, 4 years old, they're all screaming and yelling, "Shut up!" And it's kind of, what's wrong with granddad? Well, look at him. I mean, when you get a new body, this little kid body, and you're totally lost to your spiritual identity, and you're utterly identifying as being a kid, just running around in circles can be absolutely thrilling. You can just be going off, just amazing. And you've got so much energy, the body's got so much energy when you're young. Then as you get a little bit older, you learn to be a little cool, and deal with things and be a little bit more careful, and then you get older and you go through middle age, and there were all these promises, false promises, that wow, you're going to find a home in this world where you're always safe, where you can be fully happy, no more pain and suffering. You're going to find the perfect love in your life, and you're going to live happily ever after. It doesn't happen like that. And then as you get older, and then it's just like, oh my God, you look at everything that you've been through. After a while, nothing looks fun anymore. And there's a reason for it. It's because all those experiences that you really thought were going to fulfill you, you've come to experience. Yeah, they may be far out experiences, and I was getting off on it for a bit, but it's not fulfilling. It doesn't fulfill me. When you're aged, you can't imagine what it's like when your body starts breaking down. It's a disaster. And everybody that you knew is starting to die. You're not making new friends, and you're losing all the old ones that you had. It's kind of like you got tied to the back of a car and it's going to drive around an oval, an athletic oval. And in the beginning, you're all, yeah, I can do this. And you're running, yeah, this is easy. But after a while, you just get so tired, and then soon you're falling down on your knees and just getting dragged. It ain't fun anymore. And so the nature of material world is that, Not everything is as great as people make out. That doesn't mean life is a bummer. If a person lives a purposeful and a spiritually directed life, where there is an awakening of actual spiritual love and a sense of compassion and deep care for others, and one is more focused on giving than taking, your life can become amazing. It can be a wonderful experience. It's a journey of spiritual awakening. So, we become conditioned. It's not we, our mind becomes conditioned to respond in certain ways, like the blaming of oneself for everything, etc., etc. I'm not going to get into psychoanalysis. All I can say is if you engage in the process, the more you grow in your appreciation of your spiritual identity and recognize the actual nature of the mind and begin to utilize it rather than it using you, that you are the one that's going to take as the wheel and drive the bus, not your mind and all the stuff that it's capable of. As stated, it can be your worst enemy or your best friend.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's say 2 more. What's the time? 9 o'clock? Not too bad, I guess.
I have a question. Is it really necessary to let people we've forgiven know, like, if they're not ready to accept it? Can we just move on and let them be? Because just to avoid the drama again and things like this.
It really depends on the situation, how you manage it. There is often going to be a benefit to somebody knowing that they're being forgiven. However, if somebody thinks they haven't done anything wrong and you say that you forgive them for what they did,
that's pretty much the case. I don't think they are aware of actually their part in the situation.
Yeah, so you have to use intelligence. We have this wonderful faculty. There is actually an expansion of the Lord himself residing within the heart of all. The individual soul, the living being, is called the Atma. The supreme soul is called the Paramatma. And I can thoughtfully, in great humility and prayerfully, go within my heart of hearts and ask for guidance, how I should deal with this, how I should manage a situation, what should I do, and seek guidance. It may not come instantly, it may come after a little time, but that is a good thing to do. And so, in that kind of situation, if a person doesn't even recognize they did anything wrong, and if you said to them, you forgive them, and it's just going to cause more trouble, don't bring it, just forgive them and move on and hope for them that they will become more aware. Even those who have done bad things to us, those who may consider themselves to be our enemy, we should still be their well-wisher. They are trapped in a horrible condition, overwhelmed by the mind and material energy and the way it all works. Okay?
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. One more, if there is.
Haribol, Acharya.
Haribol.
One last question for the night. I just would like to get your advice around, just because you shared earlier, working or giving like workshops and seminars with like people experiencing some terrible stuff. And I guess just because I'm also working in the human services industry, what would be the what would be the best way? What would be the best way to help others going down the path of forgiveness?
Have you heard the saying, "Physician, heal thyself"? It's a very well-known saying, and it basically means you cannot help heal someone until you are also healed. So something that you can do is, for instance, to teach people the fundamentals of meditation and the meditation process. But I would caution you against trying to bite off more than you can chew. If you don't have the clarity, if you haven't had the spiritual training and the depth of understanding, and you try to be helpful, you can sometimes make things worse. And so you have to be cautious in this regard. But start with, just sharing the process of meditation and how wonderful it is, and etc. And then, as you grow in your appreciation, you can try to share based on that. It's something you have to always be careful of. Never speculate and create something. We have a system of listening to our spiritual teachers and not inventing anything new, but trying to understand. And there may be a variety of different ways a truth can be applied that may all be different ways than when I first learned something, the circumstances, and that's fine. That's not inventing something new. It's an application of a truth that you've come to really appreciate and you do clearly understand. But never be in a situation where you're making stuff up, or even if the intention is good. Good intention is not good enough. We have to be careful in this regard. Otherwise you can do harm. Yeah?
Thank you very much.
That's good advice. Is it a short one? The problem is the question may be short. I never give short answers.
Just to end the night on a good note, I would like to ask you to give us a spiritual joke.
A spiritual joke? No, I won't. Haribol. What? Are we going to chant again? Anybody that needs to leave, you can leave. Otherwise, we can do another short chant, finish on that. Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Chant the holy name.
Thank you very much, Acharya Das. Thank you. Thank you everybody for coming. We have another program on Sunday if you'd like to come along. Yeah, right. Yeah, right. Wish I had this thing.